In the last video, we asked you if you wanted to see another video about how to make your own tamales at home. And the answers were a resounding yes. You want to see that process. So in this video, we're going to show you the equipment you need, the ingredients, and the process for making your very own tamales. And by we, I mean Courtney, because she makes tamales that you actually want to eat.
You've never attempted to make tamales. You could make tamales that people want to eat.
Maybe. And by the way, I will just admit this. The first time I had a tamale, I tried to eat the corn husk. And I was like, why do people eat this? This is disgusting. I can't get through the outer layer. Well, that's because you unwrap the corn husk to get to the actual tamale, the edible part, inside. Inside. Don't eat the corn husk. Yeah.
Pro tip. So for those who have never seen a tamale, traditionally it is a corn dough with some filling inside. It's all wrapped up inside of a corn husk and steamed. And that's pretty much what it is. It's a Mexican dish. It's usually served around Christmas, and the fillings can be all sorts of things. They're delicious. As Steve said, don't eat the corn husk. So step one in this process is assembling all of your ingredients and equipment. You don't actually need that much. So for equipment, you need either a stand mixer or a hand mixer because you're going to want to really whip the masa dough. You're also going to need a pot and a steamer. And I'm pretty sure that's all of the equipment you need. As for ingredients, I'm going to show you the ingredients for the masa dough itself. Obviously the filling, it just depends on what kind of tamale you're making. So I use the masa dough recipe from Serious Eats, and in it are 8 ounces of lard, 2 teaspoons of salt, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, all whipped up, and then 2 pounds of fresh masa if you can find it. I am lucky I can find this here in Arizona pretty easily. If you can't find it, you can use a combination of chicken broth or water and the dried maseca flour that most people can find throughout the US. But luckily I'm using my fresh masa. And then 1 cup of chicken broth, which I just use water and chicken bouillon. And that is what you need to make tamales, besides, of course, your corn husks. And really, you could get away without the corn husks. It's just traditionally done that way. If you can't find corn husks, you can use, I think, parchment paper, maybe wax paper. Look it up. I don't remember. Step 2 is prepping the filling for the tamales. I did most of that for these tamales yesterday. These are Steve's favorite tamales, and very simple. So I just roasted a whole bunch of poblanos yesterday, and then peeled them, seeded them, and chopped them into nice big pieces. And today I'm cutting up some Monterey Jack cheese, and the filling will be ready to start assembling tamales. You want your filling completely cooled when you're making the tamales, so I usually prep everything sometimes days before. For instance, we'll be making green chili tamales later in the week, green chili pork tamales, sorry, and I will be cooking the green chili pork this afternoon so that it can just sit in the fridge and cool and mingle and be ready. So it depends completely on what your tamale is going to be, how you prep your filling, and how far in advance you do that. Step 3 is making the masa dough itself. So, like I said, this recipe is from Serious Eats, and I follow it exactly, so, because it works out well every time. Oops. There we go. 8 ounces of lard, 2 teaspoons baking powder, 2 teaspoons salt, okay, that goes in the mixer, gets beat up. Combined and creamy. think you're supposed to beat this for about a minute on high according to the directions. Okay. Masa. Just need to measure out the masa. We need 2 pounds of masa, but added in 4 different increments. So I'm going to do a ½ pound at a time. Change this to pounds. Close enough. Then add this in. Incorporate that. And let's do it again. Ooh, making a mess. And now I need to add 1 cup of chicken stock. I just use our Better Than Bouillon paste and some hot water. That in. So that's everything. I'm just going to whip it one more time, make sure it's all incorporated. You want the consistency to be kind of like a hummus, so not too wet. You can kind of see it holds together. What you're going to do though is after I mix this one more time, I'm going to refrigerate it for at least an hour, and that'll help it firm up even more so, and then we'll whip it when we take it out to actually make the tamales. One more quick rip. Cover it with some plastic wrap and stick it in the fridge for an hour. Find room in the fridge though. Step 4 of this process is the main step. This is assembling the tamales. So first I need to get the dough back out of the fridge. It's been resting at least an hour in the fridge, and whip it back up, making sure it still has like a hummus consistency. If it doesn't, I can add a little bit of water to it, but most of the time it's still pretty good. Bring that over to my workstation, make sure I have all of my fillings cool and ready right by my workstation. And then I've been soaking corn husks in the sink so that they're nice and pliable for about the same amount of time as having the masa dough in the fridge. So I just need to get some of those, put them in a bowl, bring them over, and I can start assembling the tamales. To assemble the tamales, I just lay out a corn husk, spread a nice even layer of the masa dough on the corn husk, and then put a little bit of the filling. You can't put too much. It's like a burrito, only even more so. You have to just put a little bit of filling, and I swear it's still gonna taste delicious at the end. So you put some of the filling, then you roll up the tamale so that you kind of coat it in the masa dough, and then you tie a little bow with some corn husk and put them in the steamer. So when I fold this, I want to try to surround the filling completely with masa. So I fold it over and put the masa there and then kind of scrape it backwards a bit, like that. And now it should be completely coated with masa, and now I can wrap the rest of the corn husk around. You want to keep the side with the flap up on top and fold on that side to try to keep it together. And then, using a tie, make sure the tie is thick enough because they break. Kind of just cinch it in place. And they will come apart, but you're really just trying to hold them together while they steam. As you can see, the steamer is already in this pot, but I forgot to put the water in underneath it. Hard to steam something without water. So I'm just gonna do that now before we fill this pot too much. I usually put enough till I actually start seeing the water coming in through the bottom of the steamer. Step 5, steam the tamales.
Those look so good. Oh my gosh. They're not even made yet and they look good.
So get this going. I'll turn it, once I hear it going, I'll turn it all the way down to low. I'll check on the water level. So usually I pour a little bit more water in as they cook, and I tend to cook them about 1.5 hours to 2 hours. The way you could tell a tamale is done is if you take one out and start unwrapping it. If the masa dough completely separates from the corn husk and just like easy as pie, you just unwrap it and it's just completely separate, you know it's done. And I want these completely done because then when we freeze them and give them to people, all they have to do is take frozen tamales, stick them in a pot, steam them. As soon as they're warm, they're ready to eat. So let these sit for about 1.5 hours, 2 hours. Been about 1 hour. I can tell they're not quite done yet. Add a little more water just to make sure. It's been a little over 1.5 hours, about 1 hour 45 minutes. I have a feeling they might be done though. So let's test it. A tamale. So, yep, you see that? Comes right off the skin, the corn husk. I'd say that's done. And now we come to our final step, which is enjoying them. Or, which I'm gonna do for most of these, letting them cool, and once they're cool, packaging them up in Ziplocs and freezing them so that we can give them away as gifts. But first, I think Steve and I should try this one to make sure it turned out okay.
I think that is an excellent idea.
So the way you eat them is you unwrap it like I just did, so you're not eating the corn husk. And then you go in for a bite.
Going for the kill.
Hot.
What do you think?
Very hot.
Good. Good. You weren't kidding about being hot.
Worth it.
Wow, those are good. Monterey Jack cheese and poblanos. So simple, but yet so delicious. Well, it's a couple days later. Courtney was jamming out to Pentatonic's Christmas music,
Wait a pepper.
finishing up some tamales. How many do you think you made?
Over 12 dozen.
Oh my gosh, that's 144.
More than that, actually, but yeah. More, because I said over 12 dozen. I know there was probably 12 and a half, maybe 13. I'm not quite sure.
Anyway, I hope you learned something from that video. If not, throw us a question in the comments and I will feed you the answer through Courtney. I'm usually the ones who do the comments and stuff. So, yeah. So that's it for this video. Hope everyone has a happy holidays and Merry Christmas, all that good stuff.
And if
And
you
we'll
make
see you-
tamales, let us know.
Yes, if you make tamales and they turn out great, let us know. If they suck,
We're
also
sorry.
let us know. Yeah. What are you doing, bud? Yeah.
Bye, guys. I think I still have lard on my hands.
You probably do.